In a modest wooden house on the outskirts of General Santos City, Philippines, young Manny Pacquiao woke before dawn, as he did every day. The first rays of sunlight barely touched the horizon as he put on his worn-out sneakers, preparing for his morning run. At just 16, Manny already carried the weight of adult responsibilities, determined to lift his family out of poverty through boxing, a sport for which he nurtured an unwavering passion. The dusty streets of the city were still deserted when Manny began his daily training. Sweat ran down his young but determined face as he visualized a better future. His family could barely feed themselves properly, and with each punch he threw into the air, Manny reaffirmed his silent promise to change that situation. He had no professional equipment, no sophisticated gym, only his fierce determination and an innate talent that was beginning to attract attention. In the small improvised neighborhood gym, Manny trained intensely under the watchful eye of his local trainer, Tito Reynaldo. The space was simple, with an improvised ring and some worn punching bags, but it was there that dreams were forged. Tito Reynaldo, a former boxer who never reached stardom, recognized something special in Manny, a rare combination of speed, power, and above all, unparalleled resilience. News about the young talent from the Philippines began to circulate in small boxing circles in the region. Manny participated in amateur fights, often for meager prizes that barely covered his expenses, but which fed his hope. In each fight, he demonstrated not only technique, but an indomitable heart that impressed even the most skeptical. His mother, Dionysia, watched with her heart divided between pride and fear for her son, silently praying for his safety and success. It was during one of these small local tournaments that Manny met Hector Dagohoy, a middle-aged Filipino businessman who owned a small sporting goods company. Impressed with the young fighter's determination and talent, Hector offered to be his first official sponsor. It wasn't much, some basic training equipment, a pair of professional gloves, and a small financial aid so Manny could focus on training. But for someone who had never had anything, it represented the whole world. The following months brought significant changes to Manny's life. With Hector's modest sponsorship, he was able to intensify his training, participate in larger competitions, and begin to build a name in the Filipino boxing scene. His aggressive style and ability to connect punches in quick, precise sequences soon earned him the nickname Pac-Man, an unstoppable force inside the ring. Victories accumulated, as did the small prizes that helped his family gradually improve their living conditions. Hector had become more than a sponsor. He was a mentor who genuinely believed in Manny's potential. He frequently attended training sessions, offered advice, and shared stories of great fighters to inspire the young athlete. Hector's small company, Dagohoy Sports, provided all the ease necessary equipment, and its logo was stamped on the fight shorts that Manny wore with pride. It wasn't a big brand, but it represented the first person who financially believed in his dream. Manny's career was beginning to take off, with invitations to fights in Manila, and even the possibility of international competitions on the horizon. His name was starting to be mentioned among the main emerging talents in Asian boxing, and other larger sponsors were beginning to show interest. However, Manny remained loyal to Hector, refusing more lucrative offers out of loyalty to the man who first extended a hand when no one else believed. The relationship between Manny and Hector went beyond business. They developed a friendship based on mutual respect and shared values. When not training, Manny occasionally helped at Hector's sporting goods store, learning about the commercial side of the sport and interacting with customers who increasingly recognized him. Hector in turn assumed an almost paternal role, advising Manny not only about boxing but about life, financial education, and the importance of remaining humble despite growing success. However, while Manny's star was rising, Hector's financial situation was silently deteriorating. The Philippine economy was facing difficulties, and small businesses like his were suffering from competition from large international brands. Hector hid his concerns, determined not to hinder Manny's progress. With his personal problems, increasingly, he invested his own limited resources to maintain the sponsorship, firmly believing that investing in Manny's future would eventually pay off. At 20, Manny Pacquiao was already a recognized name in Filipino boxing, with an impressive record of victories and some regional titles to his credit. His technique had been refined, and his fame grew with each fight. Sports journalists were beginning to follow his trajectory, predicting a bright future for the young man emerging from the poorest provinces of the Philippines. Photos of his fights, always displaying the Daguhoy Sports logo, circulated in local newspapers, bringing some visibility to Hector's small company. Despite growing success, Manny kept his feet on the ground and his heart connected to his origins. Much of his earnings were sent to his family in General Santos, allowing them to finally have a more structured house and dignified living conditions. On the rare occasions when he returned to his hometown, he was received as a local hero, inspiring other children to dream of possibilities beyond the poverty that surrounded them. His mother, Dionysia, now attended his fights whenever possible, her prayers now mixed with tears of pride. Meanwhile, Hector Daguhoy's situation worsened each month. His sporting goods store was on the brink of bankruptcy, affected by growing debts and falling sales. Suppliers began to refuse deliveries due to late payments, and the rent for the commercial space accumulated months of arrears. Despite this, Hector kept a smile on his face when meeting Manny, hiding his anguish so as not to divert the boxer's focus from his rising career. It was after an important victory in a national championship that Manny decided to make a surprise visit to Hector's store to share his joy with the man who had supported him so much. Upon arrival, he found the doors closed and an eviction notice posted at the entrance. Confused and worried, Manny sought information and discovered through neighboring merchants that Daguhoy Sports had closed permanently the previous week, unable to overcome the financial crisis that had plagued it for months. With a heavy heart, Manny headed to Hector's modest residence in the suburbs of Manila. What he found was a dejected man, ashamed of his situation and reluctant to open the door. When he finally did, Hector couldn't hide the truth. He was completely bankrupt, had lost everything. The store, his savings, even his house was about to be taken by the bank. The sponsorship he had maintained for Manny over the past few years had contributed to his financial ruin, but Hector confessed that he had never regretted it, as he genuinely believed in the young boxer's talent and character. The revelation of Hector's situation hit Manny like a blow stronger than any he had ever received in the ring. Sitting in the small living room of his mentor's practically empty house, hearing details of the financial crisis that had silently dragged on for years, Manny felt a mixture of gratitude and guilt. Each pair of gloves, each piece of training, equipment, each penny invested in his career represented a sacrifice that Hector had made, even when his own situation was deteriorating. The loyalty that Hector had demonstrated was something money couldn't buy, a life lesson more valuable than any boxing technique. Without hesitation, Manny made a decision that would change both their lives. Taking from his pocket the prize money he had just received for the national title, he handed everything to Hector. It wasn't a fortune, but it represented months of hard work and sacrifice. Faced with Hector's emotional protests, Manny was firm. It wasn't charity, but an investment. The first of many. He promised that he would not only help Hector out of the crisis, but also make him his partner in future ventures, recognizing that his current success had roots in the faith that Hector had placed in him when no one else did. In the following days, Manny mobilized all the resources and contacts he had built in his rising career. He spoke with his new manager, Angelo Reyes, an influential man in the Filipino sports scene, explaining the situation and requesting help to reorganize Hector's finances. Angelo, impressed with Manny's loyalty, agreed to use his experience and connections to advise Hector on restructuring his debts and developing a plan to start over. Simultaneously, Manny initiated negotiations with his other current sponsors, including a clause in his new contracts that reserved a space for the logo of Hector's future company on his fighting equipment. It was a risky move that could cost him lucrative deals, but Manny was determined. To his surprise, the story of loyalty resonated positively, and several sponsors not only accepted the terms, but offered potential partnerships with the new venture that Hector would start. The impact of Manny's actions went beyond immediate financial help. For Hector, who had fallen into deep depression after losing everything, Manny's extended hand represented a second chance, not just in business, but in life. The shame of having failed gradually gave way to the determination to honor the trust placed in him. In the following nights, with renewed energy, Hector began to sketch plans for a new business, something that would unite his experience in sporting goods with Manny's growing influence in the boxing world. 3 months after discovering Hector's bankruptcy, Manny was preparing for the most important fight of his career so far, a dispute for the international title against an experienced opponent from Japan. The event, broadcast throughout Southeast Asia, represented not only a sporting opportunity, but also a platform for the official launch of Pacquiao Dagohoy Equipment, the new company he had founded in partnership with Hector. The newly created logo, a combination of both their initials forming the silhouette of a boxing glove, was stamped on his fight shorts and on his entire technical team. The new company, specializing in high-quality boxing equipment that was affordable for young people from disadvantaged communities, was born from long conversations between Manny and Hector about how to transform their experiences into something meaningful. Each product would be personally tested and approved by Manny, ensuring quality without compromising accessibility. Part of the profits would be directed to free training programs in poor neighborhoods, replicating the opportunity that Manny had in his youth. That night's fight in Manila was more than a contest for the title. It was a public declaration of the unbreakable bond between an athlete and his first supporter. Before climbing into the ring, Manny insisted that Hector be by his side, no longer as a bankrupt sponsor, but as a respected partner. The cameras captured the moment when Hector, visibly emotional, adjusted Manny's gloves. Gloves produced by their new joint company, symbolizing the complete journey they had traveled together. The combat was intense, with the experienced Japanese fighter Takashi Nomura demonstrating why he was considered one of the best in his category. For several rounds, Manny faced difficulties, absorbing powerful blows that would have knocked down many others. However, each time he returned to his corner between rounds, Hector's determined look renewed his strength. He wasn't fighting just for a title or personal glory, but to validate the faith that his mentor had placed in him during all those years. In the 10th round, when it seemed that fatigue was beginning to dominate, Manny found an opening in Nomura's defense. With an explosive combination of punches, characteristic of his unique style, he knocked down his opponent. The crowd went into ecstasy when the referee completed the count, declaring Manny the new champion. In the celebration that followed, the first person Manny embraced was not his trainer or family members, but Hector Dagohoy, the man who risked everything by believing in a dream that was now becoming reality before the eyes of millions of viewers. The international victory catapulted Manny Pacquiao to a new level of global recognition. Invitations to fights in the United States began to emerge, opening doors for the Filipino boxer in the lucrative North American market. While his sports career flourished, Pacquiao Dagohoy Equipment also gained strength, benefiting from the growing fame of its co-founder. What had begun as a small venture in Manila now received orders from various Asian countries, establishing itself as a respected brand in the boxing equipment niche. Hector, revitalized by the success of the new business, demonstrated a managerial talent that had been stifled by previous financial difficulties. Free from debts and with adequate resources, he implemented efficient production and distribution systems, ensuring that quality was never compromised by growth. His knowledge of the sports market, combined with Manny's credibility, created a perfect synergy that few competitors could match. The company not only sold products, but promoted a philosophy of perseverance and mutual support that resonated with athletes at the beginning of their careers. With the expansion of the business, Manny and Hector decided to implement the first glove program, an initiative that donated quality equipment to community gyms in disadvantaged areas of the Philippines. Talented youngsters, identified by local trainers, received complete training kits and the opportunity to participate in workshops given by Manny when his schedule allowed. It wasn't a grandiose foundation, but a focused and personal project that reflected both their trajectories, connecting them directly with the next generation of possible champions. Meanwhile, Manny's international career continued to rise. His first fight in Las Vegas against a well-established American contender attracted significant attention from the global sports media. Commentators were impressed not only with his technical skills, but also with his story of overcoming and loyalty. The narrative of how he had helped his first bankrupt sponsor, transforming adversity into a prosperous partnership, won over the American public, always receptive to stories of redemption and success against all odds. After another expressive victory, this time on American soil, Manny was approached by representatives of major international sports brands, offering exclusive sponsorship contracts with values that surpassed anything that had ever been offered to him. The proposals were tempting and could catapult his commercial career to new heights, but all required exclusivity, which would mean abandoning the brand he had built with Hector. Without hesitation, Manny refused each offer, explaining that his partnership with Hector transcended the commercial aspect. It was a matter of principles and gratitude that no amount could buy. 5 years after Hector's bankruptcy and the subsequent creation of Pacquiao Dagohoy equipment, the scenario had changed drastically for both of them. Manny Pacquiao, now 25, was recognized as one of the greatest boxers of his generation, accumulating titles in multiple weight categories and breaking records that seemed unattainable. His influence transcended the sport, becoming a cultural icon and national inspiration in the Philippines. Each victory was celebrated as a collective triumph by the Filipino people, who saw in Manny the embodiment of their own aspirations. The joint company also prospered, expanding beyond boxing equipment to encompass a complete line of sports products. With factories in 3 Philippine provinces, employing hundreds of local workers, Pacquiao Dagohoy became a symbol of successful and socially conscious entrepreneurship. Hector, now a respected businessman, frequently participated in lectures at universities, sharing his journey from bankruptcy to reconstruction, inspiring young entrepreneurs to persevere in the face of adversity. The First Glove program had evolved into a network of small boxing academies in low-income communities throughout the Philippine archipelago. It wasn't just about identifying sporting talents, but offering a safe and constructive environment for young people in vulnerable situations. Experienced trainers not only taught boxing techniques, but also values such as discipline, respect, and perseverance. Some of the first participants were already beginning to stand out in regional competitions, perpetuating the legacy initiated by Manny and Hector. On a hot summer afternoon in Manila, while personally supervising training at one of the program's academies, Manny received an unexpected call. It was an invitation to participate in the fight of the century, a bout for the unified world title against the undefeated American champion at Madison Square Garden in New York. The purse offered was astronomical, representing more money than Manny had ever imagined earning in his entire career. More than that, it would be the definitive consolidation of his journey from anonymity in the Philippines to global stardom. After confirming his participation in the historic fight, the first person Manny sought was Hector. He found him at the company headquarters, working late into the night on international expansion projects. When sharing the news, Manny made a proposal that surprised even his former mentor. He wanted Hector to be in his corner during the fight, not just as a partner, but as an integral part of his technical team. It was a position usually reserved for professional trainers and experienced strategists, but for Manny, no one understood his journey and his fighter's heart better than the man who had bet on him when he had nothing to offer but promises and determination. Madison Square Garden was packed that historic night, with celebrities, magnates, and boxing fans from around the world gathered to witness what experts called the definitive confrontation. In the front rows, an expressive delegation of Filipinos waved national flags, while millions watched on television throughout the archipelago, where the combat was broadcast on big screens installed in public squares. For a nation often forgotten on the global stage, that night represented much more than a boxing match. It was an opportunity for recognition and national pride. Behind the scenes, As Manny prepared in the locker room, Hector's presence brought a familiar tranquility amid the overwhelming pressure of the event. The hands that once could barely provide a decent pair of gloves now adjusted state-of-the-art equipment developed especially for that occasion. They were not just businessman and athlete, but two friends whose loyalty had been tested in the most adverse circumstances and emerged strengthened. The cameras documenting the final moments before the fight captured significant exchanges of glances between them, a silent communication that transcended words. When he finally climbed into the ring, Manny carried not only the hopes of a nation, but also the culmination of a journey shared with Hector. The American opponent, larger and apparently stronger, represented the establishment of world boxing, sponsored by the biggest brands, trained by the best coaches, celebrated by the mainstream media. In contrast, Manny still proudly displayed the Pacquiao Dagohoy logo on his equipment, a silent affirmation that loyalty and principles still had a place even at the apex of globalized sport. The fight itself went down in boxing history as one of the most exciting ever recorded. For 12 intense rounds, Manny faced his opponent with the same unwavering determination that had taken him from the dusty streets of General Santos City to that moment. There were moments of danger when powerful blows seemed about to finish him, but at each interval between rounds, Hector's firm words and the memory of the path traveled renewed his strength. In the last round, with the result still undefined, Manny found energy for a sequence of precise punches that unbalanced his opponent, drawing applause even from American fans. When the referee raised his arm declaring him unified world champion, time seemed to freeze. The cameras captured the exact moment when Manny, at the height of his sporting glory, sought Hector among the crowd invading the ring to celebrate. The embrace between them, broadcast to billions of viewers globally, symbolized a universal truth that transcended sport. Genuine gratitude and unwavering loyalty possess a transformative power that no millionaire contract or world title could match. From a small bankrupt sponsor to a partner in global success, Hector Dagohoy's journey alongside Manny Pacquiao had become a living legend, inspiring future generations to believe in the power of investing in the right people, even in the most difficult moments. If you like this story, leave a like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the next stories.